Most people that are wealthy didn't get wealthy diversified. They got there with one single focus, and they diversified as a risk mitigation to not completely lose everything in 3 or 4 years. You can't build $1 million business off $10 tasks. You can't do it. If you want to build anything meaningful, it requires other people, which means you're going to have to get some time leverage.
Today, we're going to dive into the mindset and the strategies to create true financial freedom. And we have a powerhouse in the building to break it all down. My guest is Dan Martell. Now, he's just not any entrepreneur. He's a multi-millionaire investor, a coach of over 1,000 founders. Dan's investments have contributed to growth of over 50 startups through his own Martell Ventures fund. It's a portfolio of companies generating over $100 million in revenue. And his journey from troubled beginnings to founding and exiting multiple tech companies is nothing short of incredible. So today, we're going to break down his blueprint so you can steal it, so you can apply it to your own life. So if you're serious about financial independence and ready to make your money work for you, then you're in the right place. I think of 3 different forms of capital. So you have like financial capital, but then you have like mental capital, like skills, and then like relationship capital. And so most people are chasing the financial capital, not realizing it's a byproduct of the skills and the relationships that I have.
That's such a good insight. If people think success is money, I can prove that it's not, because nobody would trade their life right now for Warren Buffett. You wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't you do it? Well, because at best you might give them 5, 7, 10 years.
If someone would give you $1 billion and you would lose your eyesight and your hearing,
you wouldn't do it.
Would you take that?
You wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, that's just proof that it's not about the money. What it's about is
All right, Dan Martell.
Hey, Mark.
Thanks for joining.
It's an honor. This is fun.
Like I was saying, man, so many mutual friends and some overlap on what we're talking about. So I'm super excited to talk to you today. So appreciate your time. Let's just jump right in and talk about your book. And I think there's a lot of overlaps between, what your book is about, what you talk about, and sort of my world, which is more traditional investing. But ultimately, why, right? We're trying to get to the same goal, which is time freedom. All economics is based on time. That's the most scarce thing. So when I think of your book, and maybe it's just my mindset, but I think of it from like an investing standpoint, right? If I'm going to buy back my time, then I'm investing into my time, which means I get more back.
Return,
right?
yeah.
I get a higher return. And I think about like a poor mentality versus a wealthy mentality. So poor think always about spending time. I'm spending my time doing these things. I'm spending my money, versus like a wealthy mentality is like I'm investing to get more time back or investing to get more money back. I'm curious, do you think about it from that way in this book?
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is broke people spend time to save money, and rich people spend money to save time. And you see it all the time. I mean, it's actually quite interesting if you even break it up from like broke people spend money on distractions. I'd say middle class people spend money on improving their credit score, and then rich people spend money on things that are going to make them money.
Right.
And if you're going to buy back your time, then it means that time you've gotten back, hopefully you reinvest it in things that are going to generate a better future for you, right? And that's why like a lot of people have a hard time, because investing, like going to the gym, you don't like go to the gym once and wake up buff, right? Like you got to like be consistent, show up. I know. And I think that's the same thing when you start buying back your time. A lot of people, they don't see the results immediately, and they don't have the faith that over time that's actually a better trade. But and I'm a byproduct of 27 years of just doing this, so I'm not that impressed. I've literally been doing it that long. I just think of it as every time I've hired somebody to buy back time to then go not do anything productive with it, well, it usually slides backwards. I didn't get the trade I was supposed to get. And anytime I've been deliberate about saying, okay, well, this is what I want my life to look like, and these are the things I need to achieve, there's no way I can outwork to get there, right? It's like, I like to tell people, like, you can't build $1 million business off $10 tasks. There's not enough hours in the week, period, full stop. Like you can't do it. If you want to build anything meaningful, it requires other people, which means you're going to have to get some time leverage. But even like personal stuff, food ordering tools, or like you can out-task things is what I like to call it. Today, in a world where that wasn't possible back in the day, literally apps on your phone where you can just like pay people fractional costs to get the time back to then go work on yourself, so you have better mental health, go make better investments with your time. But that's always been how it worked. It's just nobody's ever really, I think, unpacked it from the lens I have because of my software background.
Yeah. You said something really important in there, and I think it really breaks down the distinction that we were making about the investor or the wealthy mindset versus the poor mindset. And you said, if I hire someone to buy back my time, but I don't go reinvest that time, then it backslides on me, I think is what you said.
Every time.
And so that's the difference of the mindset of the investor. So if I'm investing, I'm buying back my time, but then I have to go reinvest that time.
And it has to be something that gets a return. So
Right.
here, like, I know rich people that mess it up. So this isn't even a broke or poor person. So what does a rich person messing it up look like? Well, they're busy in their business. Let's say they're a logo designer, and they go hire another logo designer. Okay, well, if you're charging $50 an hour and you got to pay somebody else $40 an hour, you bought an hour back of your time, you're not making a big return on that investment. So like you wouldn't buy $1 million real estate property to make, 2%, right? Because the risk to reward ratio isn't there.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that with their time. My rule is 4 times ROI minimum. So if I'm spending, $25 an hour to buy back my time, I got to go find investments or activities that are going to generate 100, because then I've got leverage, I've got margin. Because the truth is, you're not going to be that efficient the first time you do it. And if it does slide back, at least you're still ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of people think they can just invest and buy back their time, but then they don't reinvest the time, so they're not actually making more money.
There's no return.
It's just an expense at that point.
It literally sucks your profit out of your life.
I'm curious how you think about it. For me, I don't like doing like handyman projects around the house. I don't want to work on my own dirt
Guilty.
bike.
Same.
Like I have my mechanic pick it up and do the service for me, And I think it's Saturday. I want to go surfing with my kids. I could work on my dirt bike. I'd rather not. So how do you think about valuing that free time?
So I just look at time as time, and I break it into professional and personal. And then I ask myself, it's kind of like, think of like Tetris, right? So when you play Tetris, the blocks drop from the top. Life, you could say a day or week or whatever, is essentially a Tetris, playing field. And our ability to take those blocks, personal and professional, and put them in a structure that gets them so that if that area is whatever size, you get it as full with the most, optimal use of your time. And the thing is I'm also okay sitting down on the couch with my wife and scrolling on TikTok for an hour and a half. Like that's also part of the board game. And I think people just don't think about their time through that lens. So either they're working too much and trying to be too efficient, and then the personal stuff falls to the wayside, or they try to do balance, which is not key. Nobody's done anything incredible as had balance. And they just don't consider, like, some people just buy back their time in their professional world and not in their personal. So I look at it as just time. Mm-hmm. So like free time, I just ask myself, what are the rhythms of life that I know if I follow, I'm going to feel good about my day, my week, my month, my quarter, my year. So we were talking about mountain biking. I have 2 mountain bike trips every year. I've been doing them for 4 or 5 years. And those are rhythms. I have snowboard trips. I have vacations with my family. I have all these things. I'll tell you what I don't want to be doing is cleaning my garage.
Right.
Doing mechanic work on my toys, or even managing a portfolio of assets like in my personal life. So I have a house manager that deals with that. I have somebody that is the CEO of our personal life. And people go, what is a house manager? What does Betty do? Managing passports, managing credit cards, managing vehicles, gas, maintenance, washing, all real estate, all vehicles. We have toys. Family stuff, coordination, travel, etc. Everything personal is managed by them. Why? Because I only want to spend time with my kids, like one-on-one, dedicated, doing stuff they want to do. They don't want to watch me wash my car. Mm-hmm. They want me to go mountain biking with them. Or they want, I have my son here, like every trip I do, I alternate between my 2 boys so I can get some solo time. They get to come hang out. I don't want them to feel like they're doing stuff that they don't, that I'm not even interested in doing. So right. To me, personal time is still part of the same bucket of time. And I treat that hour as the same value. And if I can spend some money to buy it back, so I'm not distracted, I'm not wasting that time, then I 100% will do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And to your point earlier, with the age of technology and apps and stuff, it's never been easier to automate those tasks. I think about it. sort of my productivity guru is David Allen. He wrote the book Getting Things Done.
One of my faves.
CTD.
Yeah. I was 23 and went to his seminar in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've probably read it like a dozen times. I could recite so much by memory.
It's so good.
Yeah, so good. So that's sort of what my framework is built off of. But he said something that you have to capture every idea, because you can't afford to have the same idea or thought twice. And so like I like to also think about like for lunch every day. I can't afford to think about what I want to have for lunch every day. So I have prepackaged meals every day, right?
Yeah.
I can't think about when I need to get my hair cut. So it's just like every time at the same month, someone comes and does it, right? And so like freeing up that mental space, it's also a buyback, right? Buying back that mental space so you can think about higher value things, especially as we move into the creative world where you really need to have that mental space a lot more. I want to jump into a bunch of topics, but let's just stick on this sort of investing thing for a while. So, I mean, you're obviously a very accomplished entrepreneur, but you're also an accomplished investor. So you have your Martell Ventures, 50 plus startups, some notable ones, Intercom, Udemy, Hootsuite. So some pretty good companies there. When you think about investing in these other companies, like what kind of framework do you have? Do you have like a deal box like Warren Buffett talks about? I mean, do you try to invest across a diverse set of industries?
I'll tell you how you lose your money as an investor. And it's first off thinking that you can spot the outliers. So that's like the first thing is when I started angel investing, specifically buying equity in other companies, I was 26, 27 when I started. And I thought, meet the entrepreneur, great idea. I can spot a winner. And then I'd be like, how much do you need? He's like, $250,000. Okay. How much do you need? 100,000. Okay. And my first dozen deals was Dan thinking that he has the Midas touch. And I would put different amount of capital in different companies because every situation was different. I probably deployed almost $2.5 million in 3 or 4 years when I started and probably lost 70% of it. The reason why is I didn't understand portfolio theory. And I moved to San Francisco and I'm 28 at the time. And I just sold my company. So I had a bit of extra dry powder. And luckily, I met a guy named Naval Ravikant. So Naval today, everybody knows him for AngelList. But back in the day, AngelList was actually an email list. It was based on Craigslist. That was where he got the inspiration. And I was one of the Canadian angel investors on there. That's how I got in the Hootsuite deal and many others. And I remember talking to Naval because today, early in Uber, early in he's incredibly wealthy, incredibly smart. A lot of people.
Now I see him as a philosopher. I have a quote I'm going to pull of his later.
Yeah, he's just that guy. But I asked him about this. I said, what's your philosophy on investing? And this is what he said to me. He says, there's a lot of different things. One, you should have a thesis of some sort. Like what is the parameter of deals you say even a first meeting or no to? And then he said, 2, you always have to be investing over at least a 4-year period. Because if not, then you're trying to time markets and you want to be essentially dollar cost averaging into private equity, aka angel, VC, kind of as an investment portfolio. And he said the other thing is you got to write the same check on every one, because if not, then you're trying to pick winners and you can't. And he said, look, I've invested at that point. He probably invested in 75 companies. He goes, I can't tell you which ones work. I can tell you the essence of the founder. And yes, I invest in things where I'm inspired by the person's vision. I feel like they have grit. I feel like they have product market fit. Like yes, all those things. But man, over a 5, 7, 10-year period, which is how long it takes to actually have an exit for most tech startups, there's so much that could happen. So I would say that's where I ended up on my angel investing is I've decided an allocation. I find great opportunities. The truth is it's also just portfolio and opportunity. Like I used to only invest in Eastern Canada because that's where I grew up. Well, unfortunately, the best tech entrepreneurs are probably not going to be there. Right. If you're going to invest in media, I think LA's probably got a higher pool of talent than, Madison, Wisconsin. So choosing even the geography you invest in, and then also, do you have access to proprietary pipeline? And that to me was, how I started doing better angel investments. Also, I started Big Band where I buy software companies, same thing, proprietary pipeline. Now Martell Ventures where we co-create, same thing. I have access to founders that nobody else does because of my personal brand. And it's just the deal box, yes. Every one of those asset classes, and not really asset class, but let's say revenue rhythms or like types of deals I do, I have a criteria that, because I also have team members that help me put these together, and we review it through those lenses. So we have essentially a scorecard for every bucket of companies. If I'm in angel investing versus buying versus co-creating, we have a criteria that we've identified, and we grade everybody, and we don't do anything. We don't move it forward past kind of investment committee until they're like 8 out of 10 qualified. And I'm a systems guy. So to me, that just makes a lot of sense. And I give all credit to Naval to teach me that, because prior to that, I lost most of my money as an angel investor.
Yeah. It seems like the same familiar story. Like most people who have a big exit all of a sudden want to become this angel VC investor.
Sounds like fun.
Hey, I'm successful. I guess I'm a kingmaker. I can go like put money in, and most likely it ends up pretty bad. That seems to be the story. I'm curious, your overall investing theory and where the angel venture sits inside of that. So you're obviously very successful, had multiple exits, so you have money saved and that's invested. I'm curious how you think about that, like in buckets. So like, hey, a big chunk in just like S&P index because it's safe, and then I have a bunch of cash flow real estate, but then I have a little bit over here venture, or how do you think about that?
I don't give people financial advice, so I'm going to caveat with that. What works for me is what works for me. I also don't care if I had nothing. So I'm kind of a weird cat where I'm incredibly blessed. At the same time, none of that I require for Dan.
Well, you're a mountain biker, entrepreneur, and a snowboarder, so your risk tolerance is very high.
Oh, my risk tolerance is high, and I don't care about money. Yeah. So I'm kind of a weird cat because I don't like. I know a guy that was so poor, all he had was money. And I think people that measure themselves on personal net worth are completely flawed. Now, is that a tool to know if you're creating more value? 100%. Do I care if I have money or not? I flew here on my plane. If I lost the plane tomorrow, I'm literally not going to cry. I'm not even going to feel bad. I'm going to feel grateful that I had it for the time I had, and I'm going to get back to doing what I did today.
Right.
So my philosophy is not, if you use the lens of optimizing it for risk-adjusted best returns diversification, zero part of what I'm going to say makes sense to anybody. First off, one of my early mentors gave me some great advice. Said, making money is easy, keeping it is hard.
I've learned that one.
Yes. First time I had a big payday when I sold my first company, half of it went into low-cost index funds, Vanguard, Bolt, like literally nothing exciting. S&P 500, there's a portfolio now that we manage. And I kind of do that with every new tranche of capital I get in. Half goes to stuff that's low risk. And then the other half, I build. I'm a builder. I build, but I build machines that build machine. Some people just put their money, like the angel stuff, right? They're like, hey, what's your idea? Oh, you're my friend Bob. Bob's my cousin. I'm going to invest in Bob's idea. Hey, what do you got, Mark? Okay, cool. Complete CPG, real estate, agency. Like there's no thesis.
Right.
I only do B2B SaaS.
Okay.
Business to business software as a service, period, full stop. It's all I've ever done. It's what I know. I have a disproportionate amount of information, networking. When you think of the 4 levels of luck and Naval Ravikant's concept on that, and like Warren Buffett, like people talk about diversification. As you know, most people that are wealthy didn't get wealthy diversified. They got there with one single focus, right, and they diversified as a risk mitigation to not completely lose everything in 3 or 4 years. That's that bucket, the 50%, which is in the market. And what I'm world class at is scaling software. So I own the largest software CEO coaching organization called SaaS Academy. I have my angel investing stuff where I invest in incredibly talented and growing as a VC portfolio. I have my big band software where we have a $100 million holdco. We buy a company every month, software, B2B SaaS. And I've got Martell Ventures where I co-create with the CEOs that I coach that have exited that want to do another business with me as a partner. We co-create businesses that we start with very little capital that I own a large percentage of, using the media company to get distribution.
Yeah.
It's not diversified. I don't do real estate. I literally do 2 things. Put my money in the market in low-cost index funds because I don't like paying people fees because they don't do anything anyway. And I manage my portfolio and I have an incredible team where we do that.
Yeah.
That's my strategy.
Yeah, I love it.
It sounds complicated, but it's so not complicated because my brother's a real estate guy. He's one of the largest home builders in the East Coast. He does unit and all that stuff. If I was going to do anything, it would be with him, and I did early in my career. But honestly, the whole thing about passive income is so funny. Passive income. So you talk to these real estate guys, they're like, oh yeah, I have a real estate portfolio. It's passive. And then I walk in and I see a room of 18 people.
Yeah.
Well, how passive can it be? What are those 18 people doing? Well, they're managing the property managers and the deal. They're looking for deals. And I was like, well, that's not very passive. Yeah. My index funds are legit passive, but they're not going to make me the wealth that I want. That's this machine. Right. So I have a wealth creation machine, and I have a wealth preservation machine, and those are completely separate.
Yeah. No, it's great. I kind of say the same thing. You can't invest your way to wealth. You have to earn it. You have to create it. And then I was just on a coaching call before you got here, and I was telling him I think of my investments as savings. So I save my money in real estate, and I save my money in Bitcoin. That's perfect. Where I save most of my money. And the reason why I call it that is because then it's passive. Yeah. It's there. It's just parked. That's where it's going to be, but it's not like active.
Yeah, and you're not looking for liquidity. The other problem is sometimes people invest in things where they need liquidity, and then they burn themselves because they pull the money out at the wrong times.
Right.
And I don't do that. I remember when my mentor told me that, he said half in like you're not going to use, and it's the wealth creation side or the wealth preservation side. He goes, that's your foundation. This is where you go swing as hard as you want. But guess what? There's a constraint. Because you are never to use that capital. If that business is going to die because you can't fund it, guess what? It dies. Mm-hmm. You do not expose yourself to the other side. So that's like, I see Elon take all of his personal net worth and put it into this company. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I love that he's the kind of person that would do that, but it's not my philosophy.
Yeah. Well, I love how you say, you know what your philosophy is. You stick to that. You're a builder and you want to build. And so, being a dirt biker and a snowboarder, I see a mountain and I just want to climb it.
100%.
And I don't know why, but I have this urge to climb. And I think about businesses the same way. I'm trying to get this. I have a contract on a big piece of land down in Mexico. I love Mexico. I'm building in Mexico now. And I want to build this development down there. And I was telling my wife the other day, it's like, I probably make way more money just focusing on what I'm doing, but for some reason I just want to do that. It's just a mountain for me, and it's not an ROI thing.
And this is what people don't understand. If I was optimizing for money, that would be a good, like when people give me advice, it's like I have one of my pet peeves. I'm at the gym and I'm working out.
Yeah.
And some guy comes up to me, they might know me, whatever, but I don't know them.
Yeah.
And they start spotting me. You're doing curls and they walk out next to you and they go, 3 more, 2 more. And you're just sitting there, headphones on. I'm like, why? What are you doing? And I look at them and I'm like, I don't want to be rude, but I'm not taking advice from somebody that's smaller than me.
Right.
My coach, Alan, is a Superman. IFB, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's the same thing with the money. It's like, if you're trying to give me advice to optimize returns, then you're flawed because you think that's what I'm optimizing for, where you're saying, I'm optimizing for exposure of creative projects that speak to my soul.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you truly believe that everything is a gift, and that's why we call it the present, we've already won.
Yeah.
Like, Mark, an extra whatever, $1 million is going to change your life 0.
Right. Yeah.
So then if it's not to choose projects that speak to our soul, that just sound fun, expose us to new opportunities, most of my angel investing, one of the big criteria is will I learn something from that founder? All things being equal, can this person teach me new things? Because I value that over a financial return.
I love that. And that's going to take me into my next topic I want to talk about. But I want to say I have a Bitcoin-focused VC hedge fund. And we invest through the Bitcoin ecosystem, so companies that are building on and around.
Yeah, on the blockchain?
On Bitcoin specifically.
Okay.
But that's very broad. So there's energy companies, it's changing the grid infrastructure, for example. We have this one deal that came through the other day where they're going to take trash and they're going to turn the trash into energy. But it's like, I don't know anything about the trash market. Does trash really need to be burned for energy? Like, I don't know what the demand of that, right? And all of a sudden I'm talking to my partners. I'm like, listen, we don't know about this. We get the Bitcoin side, but I don't know about trash. I don't know about energy. And so I deal with that all the time, trying to stay with where not only do I have some expertise, but am I able to even affect and help that?
Well, that's how disproportionate returns have always worked, is when the person investing, like a Bill Ackman, like he just knows things. Like if he can get a board seat, that's why I have a problem with the whole mutual fund industry, because the only people getting rich is the managers.
Right.
And the market did what it did, and you're giving points and you're giving credit to a person to actively manage the fund. The numbers don't back out that thesis at all.
Yeah.
yet it feels safe. It feels predictable. And the truth is the thing that you know better than anybody else. Like, that's why I actually think Warren Buffett's philosophy of like, if you're a customer of a product and you think it's a diehard great product, like a Dairy Queen, like a Coca-Cola, you're better off buying the stock of the companies that you spend your money with. So you get a double whammy. You get the benefit of the product, but you're also helping the company of the stock you own, right? If you're trying to create some actively managed portfolio of things, because maybe then you'll be paying attention to the business more. You'll be, if you're a Tesla stock owner and a customer and you notice their product lines are starting to kind of go sideways because you've been a customer for 7 years and you don't feel like they're innovating anymore, then you have some insight into going, maybe I don't want to own this stock. I just think like people don't realize that money's made when you decide to go deep and learn about something. And to do that, it takes a decade. Like, dude, it sounds like you've been in Bitcoin for a while. Like, I don't have the time to learn. I don't have the time to learn what you forget every day.
Right.
Like, think about how much you probably just forget. It's gonna take me longer to learn what you forget every day than trying to learn it. So I just stick what I do. Like B2B SaaS. I just came out with the #1 book in the space. Like, I do one thing, I'll do it the rest of my life. It feels awesome, exposes me to new opportunities. And it's made me incredibly wealthy. And I just don't see a world where that's not a good strategy.
No, it's a great strategy. You talked about a couple of things that you were throwing out there was making me think about like I think of three different forms of capital. So you have like financial capital, but then you have like mental capital, like skills, and then like relationship capital. And so most people are chasing the financial capital, not realizing it's a byproduct of the skills and the relationships that I have.
That's such a good insight.
Right. And so if we spend time to invest in our relationships and our skills, the money comes. And you had said just earlier that a lot of these deals you get into with some of these founders, maybe it's not even about the deal, but it's about working with the founder. What can I learn from this? So I think about investing in relationships and skills in that regard. So you said, let's go. I'm guessing that sort of resonates. Is that sort of how you look at those relationships?
When you said you said the mindset, you said skills,
relationships, skills, and money.
Yeah.
And the money is a byproduct of the other two.
Yeah. It's one of those, because there's a lot of different capital. Because even on the skill side, the mindset is energy. Like, think about health, right? I was just talking to my friend on my plane when we flew down here, because we were talking about kids and entitlement and like, when you have an affluent life, your kids sometimes have the bad end of the stick, especially if they interact with folks that don't understand it. They call them the rich kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And the truth is, if people think success is money, I can prove that it's not, because nobody would trade their life right now for Warren Buffett.
Right.
You wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't you do it? Well, because at best you might give them 5, 7, 10 years.
If someone would give you $1 billion and you would lose your eyesight and your hearing,
you wouldn't do it.
Would you take that?
You wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, that's just proof that it's not about the money. What it's about is a feeling. And the crazy part, if people actually ask themselves what would need to be true for you to feel that, it's nothing. It's a decision. It's a remapping of your stories. So when you talk about the relationships, yes, having incredible relationships, especially people that can solve big problems for you very quickly. That's the way I think about a lot of my strategic relationships when I look at my life and where I want to go and what I need to learn and who has that information. And, as I go on this journey, I'm probably going to run into 3, 4, 5 problems. Is there somebody that's best in class in the world? Can I start that relationship today so they'll take my call when I call? Yes, all those things are true, but I also look at my energy. I optimize, if anything, buy back your time. Yes, buy back your time to invest to get a better return. But at a certain point, more money is not going to change your situation. Better health, better energy, and we talk about relationships. I have zero space in my life for anybody that has a negative mindset, that complains, that talks shit about other people, that aren't responsible for themselves, that blame it. Like there's certain things that are on an energetic vibe level that I think people should spend more money on that. And if that means moving cities, Mark, I'm all for it too.
Yeah.
If you live in a neighborhood and it's like, oh yeah, but my cousin's not very positive, my neighbors look kind of a pain in the butt. You're allowed to move. And countries, you can move countries. You can. I think that's actually a more interesting investment in many ways, the energetic side, the health side, and that's, yes, skills and relationships are also part of it. But even the relationship stuff, like So, I don't know people like that. Okay, we'll spend some money.
Yeah.
Mark, do you have a community people can join?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. People should listen to this, should go, I should invest in that so I can get around other people. Because here's what I've learned is, and it can be through, back in the day, let's call it the golf membership, the golf club, the private golf clubs. I'm not a golfer, but there's places where you can pay to be part of a community. Those people are typically folks that are going to vibe with the same energy that you have. And the price is not the price because of what it's worth as cost. It's there as a filter.
Yeah.
Whether you like that or not, it's no different than a certain city or a country. If you want to live in a certain city, a certain country, a certain neighborhood, that dollar amount that you have to creates the investment in your energy. And then you want to talk about access to people, relationship, skill acquisition. I mean, you can live next to a neighbor one of the people I've learned the most from is a guy that is the dad of a soccer player that my son plays soccer with. And we go on soccer tournaments, we hang out.
Yeah.
And he teaches me about stuff that I'm like, man, he has no idea I would pay $100,000 just to talk to him every year.
Yeah.
Because it's just what we do because our kids play soccer together. And I just think people don't they'll like invest in their business, no problem. Need to hire people. Okay, I got that one, no problem. They'll invest in the health, they'll get a trainer, no problem. I don't think they think about their environment or their energy or the headspace enough.
Yeah, for sure. I want to take a second just real quick to just give you a reminder. The reminder is take control of your Bitcoin. Look, for the first time in history, we have a way to preserve our property, take custody of our property and protect it with no cost. You can't do that with gold. You can't do it with your stocks. And so we can do it with Bitcoin, and you should. Now, don't store it on an app on your phone. That can get hacked. What you want to do is use a hardware device, something like this Trezor right here. So basically, your private key sits here. When you want to do a transaction, you plug it into your computer, sign the transaction. When you're done, you unplug it and put it back into your safe. I've used Trezor for now, 6-7 years because I think it's the easiest one to use. I've tried, I think, pretty much all of them. And it's also open source, so you can trust the code. And again, it's easy. Why easy? Because if it's too complex, it makes me think of how many potential holes and risks there could be, not just in the device itself, but even in my own ability to secure it. So I want something fast, I want something easy, and I want something safe. That's why I use Trezor. And if you don't use Trezor, use something. Please get your Bitcoin off the exchange. Use a hardware device to secure your private key. And if you like Trezor, check out the link down below.
I got a firsthand glimpse of that. I've always lived right here at the beach. And my kids grew up surfing and going to school and playing sports. And so all my friends, we do that. And we talk about barbecues and going to the beach and things like that. In 2021, California was trying to compete with maybe Canada for being how strict they could be in the pandemic.
Yeah, they were competing.
So I was like, we're out of here. We went to Puerto Rico. And moving to a new environment, I had to meet new people. And then I was able to choose the people as opposed to them sort of being legacy friends. And all of a sudden, I met these people. And my daughter's like, Mark, Dad, these guys are nerds, And it kind of worked because they weren't my surfer friends, right? But they were like really smart and intelligent. I learned so much from them. And all of a sudden I was like, I had this epiphany, like maybe people should move because it gives you a chance to meet new people coming out of your shell. And I'm like, I'm sure those people are also, I'm in Southern California. There's plenty of wealthy people here. But I haven't left that environment.
I've moved every 6 years of my whole life.
Oh, really?
Every 6 years. I might have homes.
Towns. Well, you said
cities, full-on cities. Yeah, even countries. I lived in the States for a long time. My wife and I, probably in the next 2 years, we'll probably make another move.
Yeah.
I like the opportunity to pull out a blank piece of paper because you talked about the legacy friends. It's actually a beautiful language. I like that language. It's the default, not design. Sometimes we're friends with people not because we chose them, but because it was a default response to somebody sat next to us 26 years ago in a class.
Exactly.
How crazy is that? Why am I still friends with somebody on Facebook that if I saw them in the mall today, I'd pretend like I didn't see them? And yet that person's post affects my mood, my headspace, my focus.
Oh, that's heavy.
Dude, I use my feed to feed my mind, and I protect that, and I have no problem using the mute button or the unfollow button. And the idea of moving to a new city for me, and it's always been this way, is an opportunity to just reset. It's like, you've probably had some friends that have gone through divorces.
Sure.
And they're in like this massive like tailspin of depression and like, what is my life going to mean? And I not that I'm not sad for them, especially if they have kids involved. I'm also really excited because you now get to pull out a piece of paper. I always think of printer paper. Most people don't have printers anymore, but you go grab a piece of printer paper and you put it on the table and you go, okay, what do you want it to look like?
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? I go, whatever you want. You just broke up and are in, you're in this divorce. And you can choose to move to Italy. You can choose to sell your business, start a new thing. You can choose to go travel the world for a year, and nobody's going to judge you for it because you're kind of like, hey, he's going through something.
Yeah.
I say go through it.
Yeah.
Use that as like a drawing board of like, what do you want to look like? Go live in New York for 6 months. Who knows what you'll discover? But grow through it. Don't just go through it.
Yeah.
And moving cities for me is kind of like an expansion reaction. It's like, you land somewhere and you really don't know anybody. It's like, okay, who do I want to know? What is the best neighborhood to live in this city? What are the activities and who are the potentially new friends, right? Season, lifetime, or a reason. Like sometimes these people are going to come into our life to teach us stuff. I think it's the neatest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a reset, like you said, and building into relationships. Being a content creator on that side has opened up a lot of doors for me. I was at a barbecue at Michael Saylor's house, and I got to sit down with Naval for a while and just talk to him. Like, that was really cool. And really, when I think about going and speaking, it's like my videos are getting hundreds of thousands of views. Why do I go speak to 2,000 people? But
this is the part that people don't realize.
It's the ROI of the other speakers or organizers that are there.
It's the speaker dinner.
The speaker dinner, right? Yeah. And so it's like now there's so much of that, the traveling and things like that. Man, I really wanted to talk to you about scaling team Martell Media, because that's something that I'm kind of going through, but we don't have time to jump into that. So let's get into the next topic, what I want to really talk about, which is the legacy piece, because I really wanted to get to that. You're a family guy. You have, like you said, your kids with you. I've been married 22 years. I got my kids. Like, I love that. And that's kind of where I'm thinking. I told you I just filmed this show riding dirt bikes in Mexico, and then I went to Sydney. I spoke at this event called Cheat Code. And so I gave a talk about the cheat code in life. And I talked about how sort of the game is rigged against you, taxes, inflation, debt, and it's meant to kind of keep you in the system, but you can get out of the system. And what I said is, I'm sure you know the hero's two journey, the template that you would tell a story on, right?
Yeah.
The two journeys is that when the hero achieves what they think they wanted, they realize that's not what they wanted all along. There was something different. And so I said that the real cheat code is realizing that once you break out of that and you get the money, it wasn't the money that you wanted. It was an illusion. And really what we want is we want to provide value to the world. That's really what we want. That's where we get the fulfillment from.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think about the legacy piece. And so you mentioned like blockchain. I think of sort of my life. So Bitcoin uses a proof of work, consensus mechanism. So like whatever I do in this world is my proof of my work that I was here. And then my life is one block. And then hopefully those come after me. My kids are the next block and the next block. So I'm thinking about pushing value into the future. We talked quickly before we were recording about a book of Die with Zero. But like the fiat monetary system is a debt-based system. So debt is pulling value, stealing value from the future. And I want to push value into the future, into my kids and my hopefully future generations. So one, talking about that with your kids, how do you think through generational wealth? A lot of people think today that it's bad to give your kids something because then you'll disadvantage them. I think that maybe that's disadvantage if you don't train them properly. But if we train them properly, why wouldn't I want them to have a higher pedestal than I had? So how do you think about the generational wealth that's on that level?
I think what I'm going to share is nuanced. And I understand that anytime you share an idea, the words used to communicate the idea have to be understood by both parties for it to actually land the way you want it to. So I say that as a caveat, knowing that some people misunderstand what I'm saying. And I'm okay with that. I'm always available if you want to message me on Instagram or whatever. We'll have that chat. But I was the same way. My life is this arc of like building to prove to other people that I was worthy. Funny part is I didn't even like those people.
Right.
That's crazy. Then I got to a place financially that I thought once I got to, I'd feel this bliss. The thing would, the skies would part and the trumpets would trumpet and I would just feel absolutely complete. Never happened, turned out. Then I went on this journey of impact, which, for me, I grew up in really challenging environments. So troubled youth, at-risk youth programs, et cetera. So I did that. And then I had kids, and here's where I've gotten to, because I think legacy can sometimes be used as much as a crutch to drive decisions as wealth. And personally, I believe as a person of faith that I'm here to do two things. And if you understand those two things, then everything else might make sense or not. It's cool. One is God created me in his image, and he had a purpose for who I could become. And in many ways, I like to say to people, And I heard this quote, I don't know who said it, but it's, you want to become the person you needed most in your darkest days. And I knew in my darkest days, I wasn't listening to anybody. So for me to think of who that person would have to be, I'm talking energetically, physically, appearance, success, language, the ability to break through to a 14, 15-year-old Dan. I hope someday I become that person, but that person would almost have to be godlike, okay? So I wake up every day to try to be that. And I believe that, and I love your word fulfillment, because happiness is a fleeting moment. Fulfillment is an experience. For me, a life of fulfillment is getting to a place where everything I learn that works for me, teach it to other people. And we've been doing this since humans were humans, because that's why we have kids. Every human that has kids says to themselves, I want to create a better future than the one I experience. Hence, we try to create a better situation for ourselves so that we have more resources and an environment to support our children. I just think people don't realize that it's bigger than just their kids or their family or their community or their church or their CrossFit gym or their city or their. Today we live in this beautiful world where, with the help of a device that we all have in our back pockets, we can share the things that work best for us with the world.
Right.
So my philosophy is to wake up every day to be the best version of myself, and anything that works for me, I'm going to share it with the world. I'm going to share myself with the world. And I've gotten away from legacy for my kids. And here's why. Somebody asked me yesterday, actually, they go, Dan, are you going to leave your kids any money? And the answer is no. They don't need me to leave them money. They need me to teach them the lessons, which is what you said. And some people, wouldn't you want them to have more resources to do more and have legacy financially? I understand. It's just like I'm a big fan of the fact that I grew up in a country that has free medical, right? Let's just put all the other crap to the side on the political system. Yeah. But I do have, and the quality of the medical system, we won't judge that too much. But, like when you're born into a country, there's benefits. Right. Just like if you're born into a family, there's benefits. But at the same time, Buffett says it. He says, I'm going to leave them some money so they can do anything, but not so much that they can do nothing. I just personally decided that I'm not optimizing for the traditional definition of legacy. My definition of what I'm trying to do is just those two things. So I would much rather overinvest in many, and you asked about the media briefly, and to understand me now, you'll understand why media was such it is a decision. It wasn't a financial decision. It was, if my goal is to become the best version of myself, it turns out if you create content, that work actually does more work on you.
Yeah.
Like that's the crazy part. If anybody wants like a fast track to therapy, go start talking to your phone.
Yeah. Because
I will tell you, you will confront your demons. All of them. The insecurity, I don't like my voice, I didn't say anything smart, nobody's watching my stuff, why is this person leaving a negative comment? That work will work on you more than the work is. And also, I also know that at the end of the day, if I over-optimize me personally for legacy, I'm doing it for this future that I won't even experience, and it doesn't matter. So if I am going to leave people money, I'd rather give it to them at the right time. And if you look statistically, the best time to give somebody money for your kids is between 27 and 34 years of age. And money deployed to your kids.
Yeah, when you die at 100, they're 80. What good does it do?
That's what I called my dad after I learned this. I said, are you going to leave my sister any money? He goes, probably. I said, you should give it to her now.
Yeah.
He goes, why? I go, because anything that you give her when she's literally 75 is going to have zero impact on her life. Right. We're talking $100,000. Yet right now she's struggling. Maybe she has a mortgage to pay off. She's got her kids' student school stuff she's stressing about. That's actually, talk about compound returns. Better to do it early now than later. So when I started thinking about that, and that's why we talked about Bill Perkins' book, Die with Zero, and he makes a lot of strong arguments. So again, I can't paraphrase his book in 13 seconds, but essentially net fulfillment over net worth. The goal of life for him, and I tend to agree, is create as much value for the world financially up to a point where you feel that over time you have the ability to deploy it to people while you're here. Because I think if you give money to people when you're not here, is it really your choice? And then have as much fun.
Yeah.
And that's if you understand now that you hear that, that's why you see me, not only try to build the empire on the business side, but also, be totally cool doing the family stuff and the travel the world stuff and the extreme sports stuff and the media stuff, because I'm just trying to be the best version of myself, and my legacy hopefully will be whatever that leaves to the world. And if it's nothing, that's cool too, because I don't need anything for any, like that's the other thing. I don't need anything to feel enough.
Well, I think there's, to the point that you made before you started going into that, was that there's a lot of nuance to that. And so I already referenced that there's money, but there's relationships and skills. And so really when you think about legacy, it's really those three forms of capital. And so for my kids, and I want to talk about your King's Club as well, but for your kids, giving them the education, like my oldest daughter, she's not going to college, but she's going to like this trade school to get a holistic health coaching certification. She wants to be an online health coach. She wants to help people with health. And both of my kids are really into that. And like, you know, people that are fat and out of shape typically, unfortunately, have kids that are fat and out of shape. And I was just thinking, you know, one of the greatest gifts I could have given my kids was the gift of health. So both my daughters are super into sports and health and nutrition and all those things. And so that's that legacy piece, the education piece. So the legacy, the education of how to make money, how to provide value. I mean, that's just as good.
What if you didn't?
Well, what if you didn't? I mean,
no, but like, how would you feel if you didn't?
Well, I mean, hopefully if I'm living the life, then they're learning it, whether I sit down and teach them the lessons anyway. So
that's, I guess that's the conversation that, you know, if we had more time, I would just be curious. And not that it's bad. It's just,
if you didn't give your kids the education,
what if your kids just were what they were? You know what I mean? Like, because you know, in the extreme, let's think a parent that like their kid has to go to Pepperdine. If not, they feel like the worst parents in the world. Right. And the kid doesn't want to go to Pepperdine. But they're like,
well, if my kid was super fat and out of shape and had diabetes, I might feel like a pretty bad parent.
Exactly. But is that your fault?
I would say so. I think. I
mean, once a person becomes an adult, they also got to be responsible.
Once they become an adult, sure.
Yeah. But if you just woke up every day and tried to be the best example, and for whatever reason they didn't pick that up and they got fat, that's like the part where I question the drive for legacy around what am I trying to feel?
Yeah.
And can I get to a place where I don't need any my kids doing well, not doing well? Like I tell my kids all the time, you don't have to do anything. I just want you to know, like, you don't have to be anything, do anything. I'm going to love you because, you know, I created you.
Yeah.
And I know you wouldn't.
There's
it's just
a nuance there, obviously.
I know. I just call it like a thought experiment.
Yeah. So like my oldest daughter, I'm not for college at all. I didn't want her to go to college, but I didn't want to tell her that. I wanted her to let her decide what she wanted to do. So she knows kind of how I feel, but I didn't say, hey.
Oh, they see. You don't have to tell her, but I'm sure you talked about it here.
But, you know, and then all of a sudden she started going through this thing where she wanted to go. All her friends were going. She felt like she's missing out. She wants to go. And finally I did sit down with her. I said, look, babe, if you want to go, of course I'm going to help you. Whatever you want to do. I'm your father. Like, but there was no if she did or didn't, like whatever, didn't matter to me. But I don't know. I want my kids to be good people. But
what if you didn't leave them anything?
Well, when we think about leaving something so money, so, you know, I work with Garrett Gunderson on some things. So we work on like the trust and the family constitution. So I have this family constitution in place where the kids don't just get money. Yeah. You can't just sit on the couch.
I love his philosophy on all this.
Yeah. So it's like, look, we have this constitution. Yeah. And for example, if you have this great business idea, then it gets vetted. And if we think it's good, you get the money.
Yeah. And that's the part of like
you want
the benefit of being in the family and having that name.
Yeah.
It's there. And it gives you an opportunity. It doesn't give you a handout.
Right. And you want to buy a house? If you can qualify for the house and you can afford it, then we'll give you the money for the house. Yeah. But there's no free handouts. It's just help. Handouts, so good. Not handouts. Yeah. So that's kind of the way that I think about the generational wealth. It's more about education, and then there's help if you need it.
I guess my the way I think about it is, even if I didn't pull that off, can I still be content?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's where, like, am I optimizing for something?
Well, our contentment doesn't come from that, from external sources. I mean, we're both men of faith, Christians, as you say, or whatever. So our contentment doesn't come from that. I love what you said about being made in God's image. And I think Genesis 1 tells us who God is. And God was a creator.
Hey, yeah.
And so we're meant to be creators. And that's why I try to tell my kids, like, we're not consumers, we're creators.
Yeah, we literally wake up and just try to create. My buddy this morning flying down, he goes, what do? You get up at 4 o'clock. He asked my son, does your dad really get up that early? And my son's like, yes. He goes, what do you do early in the morning? I said, I create connected to my creator.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you what tomorrow morning is going to hold because I try to get quiet and ask God, what do you got for me?
Yeah.
Let's talk. Like,
Yeah.
man, when I give it to you and listen, my life is pretty spectacular.
Right.
It seems to be a winning recipe. And when I try to control it and manufacture it and strategically, and it's kind of funny because I wrote a book and like agenda, no attenda kind of craziness. I'm always trying to question beliefs and philosophies to see, is there opportunities to do more? Because it's hard to know. You can't split test life, right? You're not going to get at the end of the day and say, okay, I did it this way. I can go back and try it a different way. But we can try these thought experiments. So that would be my invitation. Anybody listening is like, again, the word legacy is so fully loaded.
Sure.
We'd have to sit down and define, what does legacy mean for you?
You.
Yeah, for you. And
Yeah.
do you need this? Or is it like, where does it fit? And if it doesn't happen, are you going to feel horrible? Because then I'm just always worried that people have these things they feel need to be true for them to feel a certain way. And if you do have a faith, the truth is no. But from that place you create, right? It's the absolutely grateful for everything you have and also realize that you're here to create more. And if it works out, cool. If it doesn't, cool. And that's kind of where I've gotten to. And guess what? Often wrong, never in doubt. I reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow. That's the thing I love about like a Naval or a lot of the philosophers is that, it's almost like if you don't contradict yourself, are you really growing?
Yeah.
Because the definition of growth is new beliefs, new mindset, which means that you have to change the things you used to believe. So a lot of people that have never contradicted themselves for 15, 20 years, I question their growth.
Yeah. It's zero-based accounting. I call it zero-based thinking. I learned that from Brian Tracy. And he said Einstein said the answers change. So knowing what I now know, would I do something different?
So good.
I made the best decision I could at the time, but knowing what I now know. I think that's a great place to end, Dan. You're a legend. Appreciate it. I just think the one word I think is so powerful, and I think it just sums up maybe the book and everything we talk about, is just intention. Living with intention, figuring out what you want, going to get it. Dan Martell, you're prolific online, so everyone can find you there. We'll link to your stuff.
If you don't mind me, Mark, like a lot of people read the book and they get stuck on the first hire. I don't know, chapter 5, I talk about this. If anybody wants my internal SOP for my executive assistant, just follow me on Instagram. Anybody that's on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, message me, Mark EA, and I'll send them that direct link, no opt-in, no nothing. It's my gift to them. And it's literally a 40-page document with everything my assistant does for me.
Yeah.
And they can pick and choose the parts that might make sense for their life, and just my gift for your audience.
Oh, that's awesome. We're going to link to that in the notes down below, and we'll end it with that. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.